Jamie.
Demands for police reform have been front and center here in 2020, igniting protests in big cities all across the country and here in Las Vegas. But leaders at Metro Police say they've already embraced across-the-board changes on policy, hiring, and how officers interact with the communities they serve. George Knapp of our I-Team looks at the changes that have been made.
Come on, man, my life's over!
In a nondescript warehouse in East Las Vegas, something heavy is going down. Officers cautiously move in on an armed and troubled man, unsure how this might end. Elsewhere in the same building, other officers creep toward an apartment where an agitated resident is holed up with a weapon. Both scenarios unfold multiple times per week as veteran officers relearn how to engage but de-escalate.
We're a best practice agency. We are visited by agencies across the nation on how we do things.
Sheriff Joe Lombardo is proud of how far Metro has come in the last 10 years. Las Vegas cops have long had a reputation of being tough customers. Before this summer's demonstrations and demands for reform, Metro was ahead of the curve. Racial tensions and use of force controversies have a long history here. Long before the George Floyd incident, the chokehold death of Las Vegan Charles Bush inflamed passions. In 1992, the aftermath of the Rodney King acquittals ignited fires and violence here. A decade ago, Metro had to confront the ugly numbers showing an inordinate number of shootings by police, many of them both black and unarmed.
You know, we had the DOJ come in here and evaluate us. But I think the testament to LVMPD is, yeah, the DOJ came in. We didn't push back them coming in. We embraced them. We asked them to come in. There wasn't a consent decree leveled against us. It was collaborative reform.
Metro instituted changes from top to bottom in hiring, training, use of force, and oversight of officers.
I can pull up a dashboard of every officer that works for me. I can see how many traffic accidents they've been in, how many use of force issues they've had, non-deadly and deadly, how many complaints they've had from citizens.
Metro's become aggressive in its recruitment of women and minorities to join the force and in its community policing, where officers get to know the neighborhoods they patrol. Captain Jim LaRochelle, the policy wonk in the sheriff's office, says Metro has become a model for other big city police departments.
We've been at the forefront with our training, addressing scenario-based training where you're trying to put an officer in an environment that mirrors the real thing.
Being better is not good enough. As with George Floyd, one bad apple can besmirch an entire agency. Metro still gets slapped with lawsuits almost weekly, justifiably or not. It probably will always be that way.
And like I've always said, we hire from the human race. There's all the good, bad, and indifferent, and faults, and bugs, and warts, and everything that goes along with it. And sometimes we can't weed all that out.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
While there have been calls for police reform, one major change that took place at Metro Police involves banning the controversial restraint used by some officers. It is the lateral vascular neck restraint. The department took action in July to limit its use. Nevada legislators banned it during a special session. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy takes a broader look at the number of use of force incidents by Metro Police.
The Department of Justice announced in 2012 the Metro Police Department needed to change. After an extensive review, the DOJ wrote in this report, the shooting of unarmed suspects remains a concern. For example, between 2007 and 2011, there were 10 officer-involved shootings that involved unarmed suspects. 7 were black.
I think it's safe to say they were not in keeping
with best practices.
The department implemented multiple changes. In 2019, Metro reports out of 16 shootings by police, 15 of the subjects were armed. There is an emphasis on de-escalation techniques. In this report, analyzing a 5-year period through 2019, the department provides use of force data while also acknowledging lessons are still being learned. It notes 4 critical incidents in 2019 in which the coroner determined officers' actions may have contributed to the subject's cause of death. The Clark County Coroner's Office ruled Byron Williams' death a homicide because the prone restraint officers placed him in was a factor, in addition to meth in his system and health issues. He ran from police after they tried stopping him for not having a bicycle light. Once they had him in custody, Williams told officers he couldn't breathe at least 24 times. Multiple officers deactivated their body cameras at the scene.
He deserves justice. Like, what they did to him was not right. It was not fair. It was inhumane.
The Use of Force Review Board, comprised of both commissioned officers and 3 citizens, determined officers should have immediately rolled Williams on his side after he was handcuffed, and their medical response violated training and policy. Metro took action, notifying all officers to place suspects on their side or sit them up so they are not kept in a position like Williams was, and to get medical attention immediately in a situation like this. The department also updated policy. Officers must keep their body cameras on while at a scene. Donovan Britt is a citizen volunteer on the review board.
We kind of see these events and we understand what they should be doing, and something that's outside of the norm we can focus in on and go, why is that the case?
The board also makes recommendations on officer discipline. According to the department, out of 31 cases reviewed in 2019, 14 officers were disciplined, none were fired, and 1 resigned. Captain Fred Haas works in internal affairs.
If there are bad cops out there, I don't want them standing next to me out there in the community.
And throughout the community in 2020, there were Black Lives Matter protests and calls for police reform. While Metro is more advanced than many departments, incidents like Williams' death demonstrate there are still serious flaws that need to be fixed. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
There is more information for you on police use of force, hirings and firings, and diversity on the department force at 8newsnow.com. Just click on the State of Metro banner at the top of the page. Next on Politics Now, money for education. The hurdle passed by 2 ballot initiatives that would raise taxes for our schools. This is 8 News Now. The Valley's biggest teachers union has turned in 2 ballot initiatives for the 2021 legislative session. It would increase taxes and send that money to education. Initiatives from the Clark County Education Association target the gaming tax and the sales tax. So let's explain how a statutory initiative petition works. Both received double the number of signatures needed, about 100,000. Once they're certified, the measures go to the 2021 legislature. If lawmakers do not approve the new taxes, the measures then go to the voters. They would need to approve it in the 2022 general election. Now let's look at the initiatives. The first initiative would raise the top tier of the gaming tax from 6.75% to 9.75%. The CCEA says it would raise about $340 million every year. That money would go into the state's general fund. The second is a 1.5 percentage point increase in the state's sales tax. Here in Clark County, it would go up from 8.35% to 9.875%. The CCEA estimates that would generate a little over $1 billion a year. The hike would be on the portion of the sales tax known as the local school support tax. That makes up 2.6 percentage points of the state's sales tax and would go up to 4.1%. Funds raised by that portion of the tax would then go directly to schools. In What to Watch this week, we are keeping an eye on what the governor is going to do about the coronavirus. Governor Steve Sisolak gave a 2-week deadline to see a drop in cases, or the state would have to add some kind of mitigation measures. Our cases have certainly gone up in that time frame instead. The governor has not directly said what extra measures he's considering, but 2 weeks runs out on Tuesday. We're expecting a press conference in the first part of the week. We'll keep an eye on what the governor says with regards to the coronavirus and any possible restrictions as the week goes on. Thank you for watching Politics Now. We will see you next week. Have a good rest of the weekend.